Okay, so we'll start off with a little bit of backstory on Mihile. Mihile is labeled as the Knight of Light and was the first of 5 chief knights under Empress Cygnus. Mihile is the instructor for the Dawn Warriors, which is the warrior branch of Cygnus Knights that form Erev's army to help guard the Maple World. Mihile was first introduced as Mihile in KMS, but has since gone through a name change in GMS, I guess, but introduced in the summer of 2009 during the Cygnus Knight update, serving solely as the job instructor for the Dawn Warriors. And 3 years later, during the new Dawn update, Mihile was expanded upon as his own class, which served as a way to tell Mihile's origins. I believe at the time, though, the class wasn't received very well, so it may have hampered Nexon's potential to create classes for the other Chief Knights. But regardless, Mihile seems to be the most important, as he's almost always by Empress Cygnus' side. So let me cover the most interesting part first. Mihile's artwork shows him wielding a very specific sword named Luminous Edge. Now this has no relation to Luminous, the hero, but the sword comes with the tagline, "No darkness will dare attack you with the luminous edge in hand," which is very fitting for the Knight of Light. We also see Mihile's earring and his silver helm, which is present in various artwork, but what we don't see is his Knight of Light ring, due to him always wearing some kind of gauntlets or whatever. On Mihile's release for an event, these items were released in-game. I honestly didn't even know Mihile's sword had a name prior to research, so I thought that was probably the most interesting thing. With some extended lore, there are 3 Cygnus Knight book volumes that contain Cygnus' thoughts prior to the Cygnus Knights class release in GMS. In these prequests, the volumes detail that they aren't accepting new volunteer recruits just yet, but she states that the Chief Knights are still finalizing the recruitment process and preparations. The section on Chief Knight Mihile states that he is her faithful knight, born to be a warrior, and he was given the Spirit's blessing in order to fight evil. And those who first meet him say that he's cold and intimidating, but he has a good heart that always protects her. In Chief Knight Eckhart's section, it mentions that due to his sarcastic remarks, he and Mihile don't get along very well, which isn't very surprising. Additionally, there's some generic Cygnus Light quests somewhere where Neinheart mentions that he and Mihile regularly talk philosophy long into the night, which annoys Chief Knight Hawkeye or something like that. So maybe one day I'll do a more detailed version of Mihile's origin quest at some point, but I'll try to go over a shorter version of his origins here. So at some point when he was very, very young, he and his mother were kidnapped. Mihile's father, Chromile, the famed Knight of Light, was unable to protect them at the time, and was given an ultimatum between the two. Not knowing what to do, it's assumed that Chromile showed up and he let his wife make the decision. Obviously choosing her son's life over hers, she made the decision for Chromile and he abided by it. With the death of Mihile's mother, Chromile was left in a downward spiral. Traveling with his child for just a few days afterwards, he decided to leave Mihile with a general store owner, Limbert, as he knew he was going down a dark path. After he leaves the child, he goes into Sleepywood on his own to what is supposedly his end. A few years later, Mihile is then tending the shop when a young Neinheart comes by, searching for the Knight of Light, but he leaves abruptly. A few days after their encounter, Mihile sees the Spirit of Light for the first time, but only for a flash. And later, Neinheart and Empress Cygnus come by to recruit Mihile, and that's when she gives him his name, meaning Born of Light, because up until this point, Mihile didn't have a name. His father left him without one, so he was just called Kiddo by Limbert, who raised him up until this point. So after traveling to Erev with Neinheart and Empress Cygnus, he eventually trains under Kiku, and then one day he discovers that Neinheart was searching for his supposed father, Chromile, but kept the information from him. I guess it's also important to note that Mihile was never told any information about his parents by Limbert, although Limbert has some sort of letter from Chromile, but it's never opened or read or anything like that. But anyway, Mihile has all these doubts about Chromile actually being his father, although Neinheart and Cygnus have told him otherwise. Yeah, so Mihile's upset and just straight up confronts Neinheart about it. Unable to continue his training as a knight due to him having doubts, Neinheart sends him to investigate his own father. So a bunch of back and forth between 10 Boogies and Winston and Pyrion, and then Neinheart and Erev. Mihile learns the truth about his parents. He still, however, has some kind of doubts about it and about being the new Knight of Light, and he speaks with Cygnus, who basically just tells him to believe in her if nothing else. So after all this stuff with learning about his parents, Neinheart notices that the burden has been lifted off of him. And so Mihile is told about a new recruit, Ellinia, and is told to work with her for a few assignments. After a couple missions where Ellinia beats him to it or just completely outperforms him, he gets kind of upset before realizing that it's totally fine to rely on others, and then they become best friends until the end. Also, during this period of time, with the one-sided feud with Ellinia, Mihile is also going through the process of completing his knighthood examination to rise as an apprentice knight. After a while, Neinheart also offers Mihile the knight qualification exam to advance as an official knight, which of course he passes. And he passes the previous one too, obviously, but yeah. Sometime much later, Neinheart contacts Mihile and says that the others in Erev have come to trust him. There's a lot of talk among the younger knights about who can be as good as him, and so Neinheart, not one to waste a resource, tells Mihile that the knights' numbers have grown too swiftly lately, and managing them into meaningful action has become difficult. Neinheart wants to divide them into 5 distinct groups based on their specialties, and he wants Mihile to lead one of them. And so he asks him to take on the responsibility of heading the Dawn Warriors. And he's also not one to accept substitutes, and then he also tries to guilt him by saying that the Empress needs him to take the position. Mihile, however, needs a little bit of time to think about it. And so, while making his decision, Erev is invaded, and Mihile is sent to secure a group of brainwashed knights ensnared by some evil magic attempting to harm Empress Cygnus. After clearing them out, Neinheart says Cygnus is safe and that the knights will be back to normal soon. Although some of them are already referring to Mihile as the new chief knight. He has no choice but to accept the proposal now. Cygnus calls to Mihile later as the Knight of Light, protector of virtue. She says that his presence has been an inspiration to everyone. Though not wanting to place too much weight on his shoulders, she formally asks him to take on the training of the noblesse who wish to follow him as Dawn Warriors. So, with all that origin stuff out of the way, as the years go by, Neinheart and Cygnus are now a bit older, and Mihile is much more experienced. In more current events, Mihile is almost always by the Empress's side. He shows up in everything, along with the other chief knights, of course. So during one of the Maple Alliance's conferences, Mihile is present when Hilla shows up claiming to be the true heir to Erev, when Phantom shows up instead and destroys her fake Skya that she was using to present her claim. Much later, when Damien attacks Erev to recapture Alicia and wound Shinsu, Mihile and Hawkeye are the first to arrive. Cygnus runs over to Shinsu, and a barrier is formed as she awakens as a transcendent to revive Shinsu. And Mihile is the only one to rush over to check on Cygnus' safety. Later on, 10 Boogies is captured while scouting the Black Wings base in Edelstein. Edelstein? After she's saved, the Alliance begins to spring into action. At night, Mihile meets with Cygnus for a private conversation. They discuss his hesitations for battle, and she tells him not to worry, but are they actually prepared for sacrifice? Mihile says that they're not afraid of sacrifices, but Cygnus definitely is. She doesn't want to lose a single person, and she has Mihile promise that everyone will return, who diligently just makes the promise to her right there. The Maple Alliance make their major public debut on Phantom's ship, the Lumiere, but at some point it's attacked by the Black Wings. After defeating one of the commander's ships, Mihile rushes into the conference room with Cygnus, Neinheart, Athena, and Claudine to warn them of the attack from the real ship, Black Heaven. So that's about it, but there's one little extra thing that I'm not 100% sure on, but I'll share anyway. So Mihile has this hyper skill called Charging Light, and what's interesting about it is the description and the animation. In the description, it says that the Knight of Light is summoned and performs a deadly thrust, which does a bunch of damage. The animation actually depicts the Knight of Light. I don't know if this means Mihile summons his own dead father, or some past Knight of Light, or if it's just a spirit of light embodied as a knight, but it's kind of weird. So yeah, that's about it for Mihile. Like I said earlier, maybe one day I'll do a video focused solely on Mihile's origin quests, but it's a lot of he said, she said, and I don't really like reading it that way. But there's a lot of finer details that help make the characters feel more alive, I guess. But anyway, if there's anything important that I'm missing, let me know.